No, it's all good. So, hey guys, my name is Phil Graves, and I've for the last 7 years have led Daltile's exteriors program for outdoor living products. And my first day with the company was the first day of the program. So, total, I'm about 25 years in the hardscape market segment, having previously led Technoseal sales for over a decade for the US, and you guys are probably familiar with them if you're in the business with polymeric sands and cleaners and sealers. And before that, I sold Belgard pavers in Austin and San Antonio, Texas. So I've been on industry association boards, marketing committees, the Hardscape North America Steering Committee. I've traveled all of North America, including Canada, seen every soil type and climatic condition or climatic condition. So not much I really haven't seen in the U.S. And with Daltile, the foundational product is really 2 centimeter thick or 3/4 inch thick porcelain pavers. But we were very late to the game, right? Porcelain pavers arrived in the U.S. 12, 13, 14 years ago at this point, and we've only been doing it for 7. So there was a lot of things out there, especially in terms of installation, that were creating some obstacles to broader adoption of that type of product or that product category, just with failed installations. And so my big task when I came to the company was figure out what actually works in terms of installation. And so I looked at every possible configuration of a flexible base, sand set, or loose laid or dry laid installation. And we have come to the conclusion that as a company, we do not support dry laid installations for porcelain pavers. So bonded only, or pedestals, of course. Pedestals are okay too, which is a dry lay. But for on grade, it's bonded only, and there's really 2 options for that. Bonded to an existing slab or pour a slab and bond, or now there's this permeable bonded slab that I'm going to tell you guys about today. And because it is permeable, we're really kind of comparing ourselves against the permeable paver or the permeable pavement market at large. I'm going to start out with a little clip here. You guys might enjoy it because what we're going to talk about is legacy systems versus future systems. So let's talk legacy or tradition with a little fiddler on the roof.
A fiddler on the roof. Sounds crazy, But here, in our little village of Anatevka, you might say every one of us is a fiddler on the roof, trying to scratch out a pleasant, simple tune without breaking his neck. It isn't easy. You may ask, why do we stay up there if it's so dangerous? Well, we stay because Anatevka is our home. And how do we keep our balance? That I can tell you in one word. Tradition!
All right, so, obvious metaphor. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the story of Fiddler on the Roof. And as it goes on, of course, he's got the daughters. They're willful. A lot of the traditions seem to fall by the wayside. But really, it's just a story of conditions change, right? Conditions change, whether it's new regulations, new technology, just new installation, innovations, whatever it is. So that's what we're going to talk about today in terms of what we're bringing that's new. And it's new to the U.S., as Angelique said. It's not necessarily new globally, but new to the U.S. And so therefore we have to talk about, you guys understand this already. The last time I presented this was at Cornell University to the landscape architecture students, so I kind of dumbed it down a little bit. But obviously, why do we need permeable hardscapes? Because of this. As soon as you start developing native or virgin land, you start putting a bunch of impermeable structure on top of it, and it creates runoff. And the runoff obviously leads to pollution of our natural waterways via most storm sewer systems being linked into them. Pollution from the runoff of your driveway or whatever. And then obviously if there's enough volume of water that gets channeled into our storm sewer system, it creates tremendous erosion at the point of egress where that outlet pipe is, and it ruins downstream habitats. And here's some of the things that are results. But I don't really need to spend a lot of time with this audience on that. So moving into legacy or traditional, right, common permeable paving options. So you've got pervious concrete, porous asphalt, permeable interlocking concrete pavers, and that's not a very pretty picture of those, but they basically kind of lead the market right now, I would say, in general. Concrete grid pavers, plastic reinforcing grids filled with aggregate or soil, and here's the other, filled with soil on that. So amongst those options, and I'm sure you guys have dallied around with multiple of these solutions and probably came to the same conclusions that we're going to talk about here. But the biggest problem with pervious concrete and porous asphalt is the raveling, which is just a vocabulary word I found that just means falling apart, basically. So what happens with that is, you don't really have good control on the job site. So you're at the mercy of the person who's coming from the ready mix plant or the asphalt plant. And, do they really know what they're doing? Are their aggregates hard enough? Did they put enough Portland in there for it to hold and bond strongly? And what we have found is that they don't hold up very well over time, especially under vehicular loads where you've got turning forces, and then any areas where you've got salt sand applications and plowing where you've got snowfall. So obviously Massachusetts, that's an issue. And then here's another great vocabulary word that I think really needs broader mainstream acceptance. If clogged with clay or silty soils, the Schmutzdecke, right? So that's a German word. It basically just means you got a little schmutz on your mustache or whatever. So it's sort of the garbage layer is all that really means. The Decke is just the deck. So it's kind of the trash deck. But however, if you get clay or silty soils, they get down deeper and deeper into that asphalt and concrete, into the void spaces, and then you can't remediate it because it's too deep, right? So now it's no longer a permeable or pervious or porous surface. So that's a big problem with that type of paving. And if you go to the plastic reinforcing grids and concrete grid pavers, they're kind of on a same strata of their own, where they're more like temporary or run over parking. They don't allow for great traffic bearing capacity. And then obviously from an aesthetic standpoint, they're not the belle of the ball exactly. And then we go into permeable interlocking concrete pavers. They clog at a depth, so their Schmutzdecke is not quite as deep maybe as the asphalt and concrete. But the depth that they do clog at tends to go beyond the capability of a street sweeper for routine maintenance to keep it permeable and flowing. So when you have to remediate the joints, which is typically 18 months to 3 years, also typically sooner than they say it's going to be, you have to go out there with specialty vacuum equipment, and you have to remove at least 1.5 inches of the material from the joint. You have to put that in the landfill because now it's considered contaminated. You have to bring in new, and when you bring in the new and you sweep it in, it gets everywhere, right? So let's say it's a multifamily apartment complex. It's on the bottom of the pool. It's in the skimmer. It's all over the surface of the paving, poking you in the barefoot, your kids when you're running around. It gets into the amenities center. It's in the elevator. I mean, it's disruptive to the property. And the more landscape architects I talk to across the country, the more of them are going away from specifying interlocking concrete pavers solely because of the loose joint infill and the disruptions that it causes and the unhappiness that it eventually causes the owners of the properties. And then if you don't fill it back up far enough and you got a heel like this, obviously there's a potential trip hazard there too. So the solution that we're proposing today is Daltile exteriors plus Romex hardscapes. So we're a national distributor of Romex, the first they had. So our solution offers superior durability, superior permeability, superior maintainability, sustainability, and maybe not most important, but very important, superior beauty. So superior aesthetics. So when we talk about 2 centimeter thick porcelain, I mean, it really is, I like the phrase durable luxury, right? So when you say luxury, it doesn't scratch, stain, or fade. It maintains its look for decades upon decades. So it's incredibly durable, but it's also printed at 1080 dots per inch. So it's true high definition printing. And you can make it look like wood, concrete, stone, marble, pretty much anything. You can make it look like you're favorite family dog, and it would never age if it was printed on a porcelain paver, right? So from a beauty standpoint, a luxury standpoint, you get an interior quality fit and finish in probably the most durable outdoor decorative paving material that exists in the market today. So if you look at the chart here, you go across the top, here's your traditional paving materials, your decorative or segmental paving. Cast in place, that'd be like a stamped and stained, so not segmental. Down the left-hand side, you've got all your performance characteristics that any of these materials has to exhibit to some extent in order to be considered suitable for an outdoor paving material. And you can see that porcelain really sweeps the field on everything. A large portion of that is due to this water absorption. It's incredibly dense. So it's, in order to be certified porcelain, this is what defines porcelain, is the absorption can only be less than 0.5%. So if you look at all the other ones that are somewhat regulated by industry associations, concrete pavers likes to boast less than 5%. That's more than 10% that's allowed for a porcelain paver to be certified porcelain. So that leads to staining problems. It leads to freeze-thaw problems with expansion from water that absorbs in. It leads to de-icing salt problems. When that de-icing salt melts the ice, turns it into water, dissolves into the water, gets absorbed into the concrete paver. The water eventually evaporates. The de-icing salt is left behind in solid state to crystallize and grow and start spalling the surface of the paving. With porcelain, it can't get in, so it can't do that damage. It's so much can't get in that you can't seal it, right? A sealer won't really stick to it. So it's a great material just for that. And then the concrete paver folks like to boast 8,000 PSI because they compare themselves against poured concrete. I'm going to be honest with everybody on the call, and even you note takers, with a properly prepared base and a fully supported slab, it's not going to, compressive strength is an irrelevant measure, right? It just is. You could put a bed full of number 57 stone and a F350, roll it up on any residential driveway, and 99 out of 100 aren't going to crack. They'll be fine. However, since the concrete paver guys are boastful about that, we decided to measure it, and we come in at over 30,000 PSI. And in fact, we were approaching 60,000 PSI in some of our products. So incredibly dense material. And then finally, this all comes in a lightweight format of only 9 pounds per square foot. So that means you can truck it a lot farther with less energy cost, and it's easier to move around on a square foot basis on the job site once you get it there. If you're looking at a roof deck, it's a lot easier to get it up on the roof deck and to move it around. So it really is, in my perspective, and yes, I am paid to sell it, but I also didn't have to go sell it. I believe that porcelain pavers are the foreseeable future of decorative outdoor paving. Without a doubt, as long as installed properly.
Yeah.
So flipping it over to Romex, you notice we said durable luxury on the last page. Durable solutions, endless possibilities is Romex's tagline. So they were founded in Cologne, Germany in '89. They've been installed in over 50 countries. So that's all climates and soil conditions. And they're the creator of basically this technology. We've seen this technology in the US for a while with things like Aspects, Easy Joint, Alliance Nitro, Technoseal, Noco Storm. There's some other products out there. They're all just standing on the shoulders of what Romex did in Europe for years and years before. Then the reason Romex was kept out of the US is because everybody that was a major distributor of this category of products already had a preferred vendor, and Romex came in. They're a little bit higher cost, but far more durable and just so much better in terms of performance. In fact, we've been conditioned to believe that polymeric sand requires replacement every few years. With the Romex suite of products, you don't really have that. So we can be deconditioned out of that one. And I'll tell you right now, so they have a U.S. distribution company, Romex North America. They're based in Vancouver. And like Angelique said, in the UK, she was using these products for many years. The CEO of Romex North America, Tom Kirk, he's a Scottish guy. So he came over for a girl, naturally, and started doing installations with polymeric sand. He was a stonemason. And he said, what is this garbage that we're putting in the joints? And so he brought over a little bit of Romex. Everybody loved it. And so he decided he was going to make that his career and start a US based distribution center. So what's it good for? Pretty much anything, gang. If it's horizontal paving material, Romex is good for it. So one of the things I'd point out to you, though, is tree surrounds. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but tree surrounds is sort of a hidden gem that can save a ton of dough and make much healthier trees as well. So, let me just intro that slide real quick. The Romex system guarantee, it's 3 components: the trass bedding or trass permeable slab, adhesion elutrient, which is the thin set, and the jointing. So when I first found out about these guys, they answered all my questions really, really well. But I said I had to see it to believe it. So they came down to Dallas and we installed a test pad, an 8-foot by 8-foot test pad at the working yard of the largest commercial paver installer in the state of Texas. And so every day, or 6 days a week for 6 months, it got run over by fully loaded dump trucks going to the bulk aggregate bins and fully loaded 18-wheelers with a Moffett on the back, right? Fully loaded with stone, pavers, retaining wall blocks. So after 6 months, it was in perfect shape. The joints were all perfect. None of the bond had broken. And outside of a little edge chipping, all the pavers were in perfect shape. So we decided to put it a little bit harder to the test and get a little marketing video at the same time.
And yes, that's Phil driving it.
Yeah, actually commanding it, Angelique, not driving.
Okay.
The driver sits down in front. I think they were smart not to trust me driving that thing. I've driven them before. I immediately disobey all instructions when I get behind the wheel. So this is what it is, right? So it's a sustainable bonded permeable paving system. So it's got a 10-year warranty. That's material and labor. Extremely permeable, frost resistant because there's so much void space. There's plenty of room for the water to grow if there's any water in it, but there really shouldn't be any water in it because it passes right through. Thanks a lot, gravity. It solves pedestrian and vehicular hardscape challenges, and it creates a solid and sustainable surface. So now we're going back to not a flexible pavement. We're not talking about interlocking pavement. We're talking about a rigid paving system, which, like 60% of the U.S. interstate highway system is concrete. So it works pretty much in all climates. So here's the components. I already mentioned the first two, the thin set and the bedding. So this is what that bedding layer looks like. When we're talking about like permeable interlocking concrete pavers, it's the exact same material, number 8 or number 9 stone. But instead of being loosely screeded, it's mixed in a mixer with powder and water, and then it's screeded out. And then wet on wet, you apply the tile on top of it. So as you screed, you're laying. But otherwise, take away the powder and the water, it's the exact same cross-section, exact same material as any permeable paving you've been currently specifying. And then the grout, Romex has multiple grout materials or jointing materials for different applications. The one that we use typically is called Eco Fine. It's sort of the Swiss Army knife of their lineup. But it's very permeable and, as you'll see, very pressure washer resistant. So really cool. So if we look at the trass versus a traditional concrete, not a different porous concrete, just a regular concrete slab. With trass, you don't have to put up forms. You don't put any rebar. You don't put any mesh. It actually inhibits efflorescence. And the reason for that is because trass is a specific mineral. It's not a product category name like polymeric sand, for example. Trass is a specific mineral that is mined in Germany. And in this case, it's meteoritic. So it's, it was created from meteor strikes in Germany, in southern Germany, and it created a very high quality separate mineral. It's also a like and similar mineral content is found throughout Italy, where they call it pozzolanic, right? So there it's volcanic. So similar heat and pressure kind of process to create that mineral. But I'll tell you a little buyer beware right now. There are competitors coming out with what they call trass. It's just a bag of Portland cement. They don't know that it's actually a mineral name. They think it's a category name, which it is not. So it has advantages over Portland cement, and really in the bag of trash, by European law, it has to be minimum 20% trash. The rest of it's basically a good quality Portland. But if you have that at minimum 20% trash in there, it changes the nature of how it works. It actually cures out significantly stronger, and it does suppress rather than promote efflorescence. So you get a little bit of aesthetic bonus on that one. So that actually helps reduce your project timeline, because if you're forming and pouring a slab with rebar, you have to do all that. You have to pour it. You have to wait, let's say, at least 4 days before somebody goes out there and starts laying on top of it. Obviously, 28 days would be ideal, but 4 seems to be sort of the minimum that anybody's willing to accept. But with trash, you're screeding and laying day one. Like as soon as you're ready to go, you're installing pavers. It has superior permeability and frost resistance. You get cost savings, not only because the material itself is cheaper, but you save labor by going faster on the job site. So typically as much as 15 to 25% cost reduction on the job. And then there's 30 to 40% less embodied carbon than concrete. And that's because a bag of Portland, the Portland is a fired product, so it's heavy energy cost to produce. Trash is mined and ground into a powder, so it doesn't have that firing cost associated with it. So that cost is not in the bag. And then grass on trash. This is actually really smart, especially if you're doing it with, say, porcelain pavers or dimensional cut natural stone. You can use one bedding layer and have the whole thing be permeable. So with the artificial turf, you just glue it down with a construction adhesive. I mean, you can still stick a couple staples in there if you want to, but basically you just glue it down with a quality construction adhesive and you're done. So a neat application for mixed materials on the job site. Trash versus pedestals. So if we talk about roof deck systems, as long as the cavity isn't too big where it would add a lot of weight, there are some definite benefits of using trash over pedestals. Now, we sell a lot of pedestals ourselves. I'm a big fan of them, but here's just how it's different with trash. So with pedestals, you can make everything flat and level. The joints are open. You still have access to below. But in terms of cost, it starts to creep up when people start worrying about wind uplift prevention and fall-through protection. So it adds new components and new pieces and new complexity to the system. With trash on a roof deck, it's fully supported, so there's no fall through worry, and it's a fully bonded system, so there's no wind uplift worry. Now, unlike a regular bonded system where you've got your waterproofing, your roof membrane, or your drainage mat, and several layers of buildup, you still have to have surface drains to get it off the surface. With this, the whole surface is a drain with those joints, so you can still have your flat, and I'd still probably put a 1 or 2 degree slope on it, but you can still have a basically flat outdoor surface with perfect fall through protection and excellent wind uplift prevention. And then to go over their jointing products a little bit, as mentioned previously, they have a bunch of them, for different uses. And you can see on the picture here, extremely wide joints even. In fact, a lot of their joint materials, they claim no upper maximum on the width. Which is pretty impressive, which means you could basically screed a patio out of some of their material and be fine. But for all paver types, all their stuff is really easy to use, and it does not require replacement, right? So it's basically everything's a one-time use, one and done. And then the major one really for me is pressure washer safe, because pressure washer is how you literally remove polymeric sand if it's starting to fail. You just go out there and blow it out, and you can't really do that with these products. So what are your options for your paving material with this? Pretty much anything, right? Porcelain, concrete, stone, woodblock, clay brick. So any of the materials that you might currently be specifying are perfect candidates to be used with the Romex jointing materials for a more durable job than what you're currently getting out of the products, largely available on the marketplace. So the EcoFine is the one product I mentioned. That's their primary jointing material. It's sort of the Swiss Army knife. It's ready mixed, comes in a vacuum sealed bag, cures with contact with atmosphere. So the water in this case is not an activation agent. It's merely the bus that moves it around, right? It's a transport agent. So it's what helps it get moved across the pavement and what helps it go find its way down into the joints. So it won't start to cure until the water is dry and it's making contact with only atmosphere. So unlike a polymeric sand, it's not finicky to the amount of water. You can use as much water as you want. In fact, kind of the more water, the better. And you won't have an issue with polymeric sand where you didn't wet it enough and it didn't get down to the bottom, or you wet it too much and you floated the polymers. That doesn't happen with this material. And a lot of the other systems or materials out on the market that call themselves the resin sands or the wet sweep sands, they tell you straight up, don't use it around a pool because pool chemicals will be harmful to the material. Oh, it looks like we got a video here. Oh, that already played. We'll go to the next one. Obviously, permeability is sort of the key to what we're talking about here, bonded and permeable. So just a little video on how it works through the system. Because the matrix is so small, the pollutants that collect on the surface stay on the surface. So you can pressure wash it and restore permeability if it gets clogged up with, surface schmutz, for example. But the schmutz deck is super, super thin because it's basically only on top. Here's a more permeable product called Flex Joint that if I were specifying interlocking concrete pavers, I would immediately flip from specifying number 8 or number 9 stone for the joints to Flex Joint for the joints. It drains at over 500 cubic inches per hour. And by the way, if we have a storm that's 500 cubic inches per hour, the four of us or whoever's on the call, we're going to have to go out there and start rounding up 2 animals of every species. Because that is a global catastrophe rain event, and it can handle that on the pavement. And then, so highly permeable, but check out the durability. This video is insane. So this is Flex Joint. This is a 4,500 PSI pressure washer with a turbo nozzle. It's about 2 inches off the joint, aimed only at the joint. In fact, we start hitting that paver in the middle, we're probably going to be able to write our name in it. And here's how it handles. If that were a number 9 stone, it should be wearing a full face shield coming right back at you. I may know from experience. So, yeah, there you go, 500 cubic inches per hour. And then highly durable, another vocabulary word. It's got a higher durometer, which is basically a measure of puncture resistance for caulking. So with the Flex Joint, it's got a higher durometer, handle those high heels, no problem, no puncture, no UV degradation, and it closely matches the other jointing materials that you might use on the rest of the job. So this you might throw in as a control joint somewhere, and you won't really, other than a little bit extra wider, you won't really have any visual cue that that's what it is. So durability, we've been talking about, durability, permeability, maintainability, sustainability. So longest lifespan in the market, 50-year life expectancy, 40 tons of surface weight. Here's what's key though: de-icing salts, pool chemicals, pressure washing. That's what makes it durable over time. And again, that 10-year warranty, maintainability, all pressure washers safe. I'm going to keep hammering this pressure washer it's a feature for a little bit. It is that important though, actually. But we'll skip past that and then switch category gear change a little bit here. Not entirely, but a little bit. So bonded gravel, they have solutions for gravel with grit. So for example, a decomposed granite, right, with fines. And they've got a beautiful solution for clean, like washed and dried aggregate that you see here. Now, everyone has seen aggregate binders before. It's nothing new. However, most of them are meant purely for stabilization, not really bonding or binding, and typically they're topically applied. This is a mixer, at least the clean aggregate one is a mixer. The grit is topical. But the difference on the clean aggregate is when we're done with the Romex products, it's vehicular, right? It's light residential vehicular. You can make a driveway out of it. If you want it to be heavy vehicular, you just install it on top of a bedding layer of trass, and now you can put fire truck traffic on it. So unbelievable strength and durability. Your options for what aggregates you might want to use are nearly unlimited. So you can go from a very fine decomposed granite with grit with one product, move to a different Romex product, and go all the way up to 6-inch diameter river rocks with very limited contact points that are bound together so strongly that if you're going to try to kick one off, please put on a steel-toed shoe first. I may know from experience on that one too. It's an incredibly strong bond. So even down to like recycled glass or fiberglass, decomposed granite, glowstone. I mean, your design options with this material are really, really tremendous and kind of endless. So here's the rock dust. This is really just for stabilizing pathways, but it does such a good job that it makes them ADA compliant, and you can make them vehicular too. So it basically makes a decomposed granite or lichen similar aggregate with grit perform roughly at the same level as asphalt. But obviously with a more natural look than asphalt and without the bitumen and the petrochemicals and things like that. And then versatility of design. Here's just some logos that they've made with various different aggregates. You can see on the right-hand side, this is a job we did with them in New Jersey. That's hard as a rock right there, and you pour a 5-gallon pail of water on it, it disappears immediately. But, large format slabs, small joint widths, just lots of different options that you can use with this material. So switching to sustainability real quick as we near the end of the presentation. So Daltile 2cm porcelain, we already said it's lighter, easier to transport, less energy cost than most materials. It doesn't have any Portland cement in it. You put more square foot per truckload. It doesn't have any Portland cement. It has no VOCs in the manufacturer. It doesn't release any VOCs, and there's no need for chemical sealers. So from a sustainability standpoint, porcelain is neck and neck with natural stone. It depends only on where the natural stone is sourced. So porcelain is a fired earth product, like a clay paver. But if a natural stone is, say, a Chinese granite, for example, the energy cost to get it over here is going to be more than the energy cost to fire Daltile porcelain in Dixon, Tennessee, for example, domestically produced. And then sustainability for Romex, we've talked about most of this already, but the trash bed, because it has that mineral that's mined and ground rather than fired Portland, or in lieu of all fired Portland. The EcoFine jointing material, it's 98% natural recycled. The production is solar powered, and the packaging is even 97% recycled. The permeable systems reduce strain on city infrastructure. Once cured, it's chemically inert, so it can be water adjacent. We can work with permeability regulations. We might have to do some networking to the right mid-level bureaucrat in whatever municipality, but we can make a strong case with plenty of data. And then, Passive House and Living Building Challenge lead credits. From a sustainability standpoint, Romex is really top notch. So here we go, what we've all been waiting for, the beauty. We talked earlier about how, permeable interlocking concrete pavers are probably the most beautiful current or legacy or traditional paving material for permeable applications. Well, now you're going to look at a bunch of pictures, and what I'd like to call your attention to is, they look like really just nice looking hardscape pictures that you've seen all over the place. The difference is these are permeable, fully permeable, and can potentially give you some credits to make a bigger patio, bigger pool deck, whatever, so you're not bumping up against that ceiling of impermeable cover restrictions. So in Florida, here we go, in British Columbia, and you can tell it's the cold part because of what's on the ceiling. Those are those ice dams to keep from getting killed by the snowfall and ice that results on top of the roof. In this case, we've got a radiant heat system. So look at the mixed materials, the somewhat larger format concrete pavers, inlay of natural stone, And this thing never has snow on it because before it starts snowing, the driveway starts warming up and all the water just percolates right down through the joints. So an award-winning job there and a really neat one. Here again, yeah, it looks like any flagstone job, except for these joints are completely permeable. It's bonded, they're pressure washer safe. This is just you're looking at a durable surface that you can't tell right now as it looks brand new. But you know that if that was a brand new surface and that was, say, polymeric sand in the joint or a mortar joint, and this wasn't a bonded application, those joints would be falling apart in short order. Little New York City, so there's that flex joint, that highly permeable one that handled the 4,500 PSI pressure washer. More porcelain jobs, but again, all porcelain should be bonded. We work with MAPE for a great warranty system for bonded to slab. But I am of the firm belief that Romex is the superior solution, the best solution for installing porcelain and really for large format natural stone, to be honest with you, and dimensional cut stone, because that stuff gets so much efflorescence wicking up through it and sort of picture frames every stone. Here's a nice integration of concrete pavers and bonded aggregate. So the bonded aggregate often ends up looking in a picture just like an exposed aggregate concrete, but that's all bonded aggregate, highly permeable, lots of void space. Also pressure washer safe. Here's some nice mixed materials, large format stone. This looks like a granite paver, but again, we're in Central Park, so freeze-thaw climate-ish. Been on this driveway personally in Texas, so an $8 million house. And the builder was just standing out there with some water bottles, pouring it on the driveway when I drove up. Just sort of mesmerized at it, while the house behind him was really magnificent. But this turned out absolutely beautiful. Here's some larger rounded aggregate bonded. That's not going to get kicked anywhere. So it's a private residence, wanted sort of a Japanese stepping stone garden. Maybe they got kids. If I was, 4 or 5 years old, I'd be playing in those rocks all the time. Now nobody's going to be messing around with those stones. Just a bonded aggregate pathway, nothing particularly fancy, but highly permeable, basically zero impact on the environment around it, and highly, highly durable. This, I think, will become very popular. These concrete slabs, not the prettiest ones I've ever seen. The aggregate, not the prettiest, in my opinion, I've ever seen. But imagine if these were porcelain pavers, gap them out 4 to 6 inches. This is already a very popular look. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, that aggregate is just loose, and it gets kicked all over the place. It's always on top of the pavers. So you can do this. Say you did this over a number 57 stone base, and this was all highly permeable. This is not only very pretty, but it's also very functional. And, that permeability is through the roof at that point because so much of the surface area is permeable. This is just at a hospital somewhere where, the maintenance crew with the leaf blower and the weed whacker were kicking out these little stones all the time. So they stuck them together and they're in top shape now. Some more mixed material here. Okay, we're just looking at beauty shots here at this point, gang. So let me move on a little bit. Here we are. Looks like exposed aggregate. That is bonded decorative aggregate, so highly, highly permeable. 16th Street Mall. This is a famous one. There's like a book about this pavement out there somewhere. Almost entirely, I think 2 or 3 miles of this are done with Romex jointing products, and it's an ongoing job. They keep adding to it. Here we are in Vancouver. So this is a cruise ship port. This thing gets bumped into by ships all the time. It's over like 3 levels of parking garage. It's highly flexible, and it's 7 or 8 years old. And you can see, sort of here's those control joints done with the flex joint on the surface. You can see how that is offset just a little bit wider joint. But if you could zoom in on it, the joint material is basically the exact same color as the surrounding. All right, real quick on the tree surrounds. This is becoming extremely popular in Canada for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can go right over the soil with this. You don't have to compact anything. So that's the biggest problem with your tree areas in urban environments. If you're going to pour concrete up close to them, you're compacting the ground, and then you're restricting the water that gets in there with concrete poured a little close. So Roots will look for water. The easiest place to find the water is to go up to the surface, and that's when you start heaving the surface. If you have healthy, loose soil beneath the surface, the roots will, and you get water to it, the roots will go down and the root ball will get bigger. And I'm sure I'm not educating you guys on this, but that makes your canopy bigger. So you get better urban cooling if you've got healthier root systems of your trees. So if this were to be an iron or otherwise metal tree grate, it's probably going to cost from $3,000 to $7,000. They always get warped. They'll catch a tow. They rust. They're just kind of trip hazards. I haven't been to an older downtown area where those things aren't just basically a mess. With this system, just a bonded aggregate, it's highly permeable. You can walk right over it. You can take a baby carriage right over it. It's ADA compliant, no big deal. You make your ring a little bit bigger than the root, but it's not stronger than the tree. So it'll never choke the tree like an iron tree grate will. If the tree outgrows the ring, it'll just push it out and it'll break it up a little bit. And then you come in and you chunk it out and you put some new in with a bigger ring. So it's a very, very easy repair. And your upfront installation cost is going to be about $1,500 versus three to 7,000. So a beautiful solution, very healthy for the tree, ultimately simple to repair if needed, if that tree does what we hope it does and grows big and strong. Quick video showing the permeability in that application. It just goes away, right? It immediately goes down into the ground below. And then what do you not see in this picture? Storm sewer drains, right? This whole band down here has wide joints and it's highly permeable, and that's collecting all the stormwater runoff off this street. This driveway has like 2 feet of number 57 stone underneath it, and they use it as a cistern system to irrigate their property with rainwater. So a pretty neat solution. It's on Long Island, so they got a bunch of dough, I'm sure. But this is all just bonded aggregate. And well, they got a couple of nice cars right there. 2 Porsches, as a matter of fact. But a beautiful driveway and highly functional too. Oh no, we're in Las Vegas. This thing's getting pressure washed by not the best skilled crew every day, twice a day. So that's been holding up for 7 or 8 years. And they've had some stuff that they really had to work to get clean, I'm sure, at times as well. So durability, we've been talking about it. Obviously, it's there. Here's that job in New Jersey again. This is another award-winning job. That's our full color range Pennsylvania bluestone look 2CM porcelain. Pretty neat application. They just hit it with a hammer and then made a veneer for the fireplace or fire pit out of it. And a religious site in Ontario, more driveway. I think that's probably that same driveway in Long Island. Lots of different mixed materials and different size joints here in City Street in Ohio. So certainly freeze thaw there. Some decorative aspect that you can do with different colored bonded aggregates. This one I like a lot, right? I mean, this is a unique and interesting just channel drain. And if like some people have been taking the grates off the channel drain and just filling them full of bonded aggregate. We don't make a bunch of money when we do that, but when somebody does that, but it's a pretty neat application actually, and ultimately easier to keep that channel drain clean.
Yeah, it's like a filter.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple different, size aggregates. Oh, by the way, the high gloss, that falls off in about 4 months. So it goes back to basically a matte finish, and it's still incredibly stuck together. So if you want the gloss, you can come back with like a squirt bottle or something every once in a while, or before you have a party or whatever. But most people actually like the matte better over time. Here's a really neat, I think, application of both porcelain and, decorative bonded aggregates. So there's your wide joints, highly, highly permeable, unique design, just, an example of the creativity that's at your disposal when you think a little bit out of the box with the materials that you have. Once again, looks like a regular hardscape, but in this case, it's bonded, it's permeable, it's highly functional. Finishing picture, here's that job in New Jersey one more time. We're proud of that one, obviously. The inlay they did also with a broken mosaic. but all the jointing here is Romex. Even what we stuck the veneer to the fire pit, that was a Romex product as well. So they've got a really nice suite of products. And so my close, I'm going to say what if. So let's go through just a little hypothetical thought exercise here, gang. What if everything I've been telling you for the last 45 minutes has been the tradition, right? Has been the legacy, has been what we've been doing for the last 30 years. And someone came to you, as I did today, and presented permeable interlocking concrete pavers or grid pavers or the plastic coils or porous concrete. What would you ask? You would say, well, does it perform better? No. I mean, PICP maybe for about a month or two before it starts to clog up at a deeper level, but no, PICP, no, none of it performs better. All right, well, is it easier to maintain? No, it's way worse to maintain. You got to worry about the schmutzdecke getting too deep, and if you're using PICP, you got to vacuum it out. You got to take it to the landfill. I mean, everything. It's a mess. No, it's not. It's not easier to maintain. All right, well, is it more sustainable? Well, PICP's not, I can tell you that much, right? I mean, it's concrete pavers. It's 3 to 4 times as heavy. It's got Portland cement in it. Shoot, okay, well, is it more durable? No. The look starts to fade, pretty quickly after you put it in the ground, and then it only gets worse from there. All right, well, is it more beautiful? No, not even from day one. Not even from day one is it more beautiful. All right, well, it's got to be half the price. That's a little cheaper to install, but it's not half the price, and you literally lose all your savings the first time that you go back to remediate those joints. And in the process, you make everybody at the property just miserable, make them unhappy. So what do you say? You want to buy it or not? So literally, if we were already doing this, no one would switch to what we're doing now, is basically what I'm saying. So looking into the crystal ball, the future of permeable paving is already here. We just don't have enough folks knowledgeable about it and actively specifying it. But as soon as this catches on, I think that you're going to find it a lot easier to get buy off on more permeable pavements, which are good for the planet. And now you'll have them actually be beautiful and long-term maintainable and sustainable on top of it. Highly, highly durable. So durable luxury that comes at basically a mid-level price point if you can compare it against like high-end natural stones that people already use in permeable environments. And, you get that you get that aesthetic value that it's not just functional. It's highly functional. It's basically the most functional and easiest to maintain, but you get that aesthetic value that makes it look like essentially any other beautiful hardscape that's out there right now. Just just with a better outcome for the planet. So, gang, that concludes the formal portion of the presentation. I'm gonna figure out if I can stop sharing.
You should be able to, and yeah, take some.
I'd love to handle some Q&A if guys or if folks out there are interested.
Yeah, I have a question for the grit bonding product from Romex. Can you apply that anytime? Like, say you've already installed a path that's been compacted, yes, and so you can just put it on top and spray it down. And
yeah, so the process would be you'd come in like with a garden rake. You could use a tiller depending on how big the area is, but general garden rake, it's actually between the garden rake and the watering can, it's like the most embarrassing one to present to professionals. But you fluff the top 2 inches, then you apply the product, run it over with a plate compactor, and then a little last application of the product on top of it, and you're done. Yeah, it's really easy, and it works really well. And in fact, I'll tell you a little pro tip. Some people, when you compact it, it gets more of a tight look on the surface. It doesn't look as natural. So what some people do is before they put the second coat on, they'll just broadcast a little bit of loose on top and then put that on top. So it looks more like it had never been fooled with, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were looking for a project. We were looking at a Reed's Custom Soil. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They have a binding agent too.
Custom Soil? I know Techna Soil. I don't think I know Custom Soil.
Yeah, Reed Custom. Yeah, it's a look. I mean, yeah. I don't know. why they distribute, but they were like, you need a steamroller to make it work right. We'd be like, this is a hilly job site. Like, we can't put a steamroller out there.
Well, yeah, if you need a steamroller, then maybe take a look at your formula on the chemical.
Yeah, they were like, you can play compact it like in some areas, but we don't really recommend it. I was like, what's the point of having it then?
Right. You could use this, but then you're going to have to pour concrete on top of it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Well, there's a scenario that I like to talk about, but I know, Phil, you have some issues with it, but let's hear you. I like the idea of, you have a broken concrete driveway, and you can actually take the resin bound aggregate and just keep the broken concrete in situ, therefore removing landfill costs, people's costs, disposal costs, all this, because you in effect, a broken concrete driveway or pathway is permeable. So you can skim over the top of this for the resin bound. And I know, Phil, I know you say, why would you do that, is what you've said before. But I see it as a win-win for a solution where you cut costs significantly and landfill and cover it. So what do you say to that?
Yeah, I've done a little more thinking and talking to people about this since we've talked about it.
Okay.
A lot of it depends on how healthy the broken concrete is, right? If it's got differential settling, or the crack is 1/4 inch or bigger, maybe not suitable. But if it's just cracked concrete, yeah, you can go right over the top of it.
Yeah, I guess I meant aesthetically cracked.
Yeah. And even though, so basically it doesn't impact the permeability at all, right? That's the real answer, is if the concrete's letting some water through, it'll still let water through. If it wasn't, it still won't. But what it can do in bigger areas is it can actually stop that first flush of runoff. So it can stop the initial load or mitigate the initial load on the storm sewer system by just sort of catching that first runoff and controlling it and slowing it down. And that actually, the more water you keep sort of in the area, that helps with cooling too, with transevaporative cooling. Any water that's sort of still in the matrix, as it evaporates, it has a cooling impact on the environment. So there actually are practical benefits to doing that, to just overlaying existing concrete.
Well, and my vision on that is for clients that want cost-effective options, and it's a win for the environment as well as for the client on the full life cycle of the project. And if you want to expand the driveway, you just have to prepare the new section. You don't have to dig up everything else. So I just see it as a different price point for clients.
Yeah, and from design, you could use different colored aggregates, make a logo, make whatever, right? I mean, make a design, make a pattern. Yeah, there's things you can do with it for sure.
I guess the other comment that I had, and I'll stop talking and leave other people to ask questions, but when I started using these products 20 years ago or so in Scotland, the crew that I had were not interested in learning about new products, and but they loved this once they got trained on it.
It's so easy. It's so easy.
And so, that was my point. Go ahead, Phil. Sorry.
Yeah, actually a lot of people report where the first time they're screeding out decorative aggregate, right, with a trowel, they report it just satisfying. It's what they like. So it's like watching like a ball track video or a pressure washing video, right? It's just satisfying to do. and it's so insanely easy that, like a guy that works hard, right, he's a crew member, we bring training to him, and he's out there doing it. And invariably they look up and go, "That's it." Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So it's easy to do. People actually like the installation process for some of these products. And then for like the trash bedding, I mean, it's completely adjacent to the way every hardscaper in North America is screeding a bedding layer right now. They just have to add the mixing and a little bit of pay attention to time and temperature and, and forecast. But other than that, it's insanely easy from a train your labor standpoint. And we're out there actively training labor on a weekly basis as well. So,
Phil, I actually wanted to ask about that question, the, sort of the idea of all of this, the concept versus the implementation. So we don't have a hardscape team on staff. So what would happen for us is we would be designing this and then looking for people who do it.
right.
And obviously not training other companies. So do you, as a seller of the product, have contact with a data bank of installers?
Generally, yes, but most of them are installers that we have trained and gone out and done. So this is relatively new product category across the U.S. And Daltile is probably the most aggressive right now at spreading it just because of our size. But for example, where are you, Monique?
Massachusetts.
You're in Massachusetts also. Okay.
Mhm.
We could find guys, no problem. I've been in the hardscape industry for 25 years. I'm pretty active on like the hardscape forums on the internet, Facebook, whatnot. I know people in Massachusetts, which means I'm no more than like 1 or 2 degrees separation from somebody that we can find to do the job.
Yeah,
and that's nationwide.
Trying to build the network around this, to me, feels like the best fast track to trying to get it.
I agree. I agree. And then, the more of those hardscapers that are out there getting trained up and doing it, this is going to snowball like crazy. So, I mean, we're all sitting here, we're on the front end. It's exciting, maybe feels a little bit risky. It's not risky at all. It's got 35 years of proven success across the globe. We just got to get people savvy to it here in the US.
We have a pond, actually not a pond, a waterfall. We did a park in the center of town, and the whole surround of the park is, looks like that Romex pebbly one.
Yeah.
It looks like that, and the water just bubbles over and it just goes through it, and the kids walk all over it, and so we did that about, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago. I can't remember. But I've never seen it since. Like I've just never seen it. So
you don't know what good of shape it's in today?
Oh yeah, I mean, I see it all the time. It's right in the center of town.
And you haven't seen a similar application?
I haven't seen it used anywhere. I haven't seen it on any properties that we go on. I haven't, I just haven't. And now we do a lot of conservation work, and they always make us do permeable pavers, and we're doing another one, and we always get a little cross-eyed by it because because of the problems we know will happen down the pike. But you're kind of forced by conservation to do it, and it costs more than a regular patio, so you're already trying to figure out a way to mitigate that cost.
Yep.
But it's also just really trying to find somebody who's willing to learn it and try it, or has already learned it and is trying it.
Yeah, we could find you somebody easily enough, especially because the process is just not challenging, right? I mean, it's very adjacent to what everybody else is doing for joint materials already. It's just a higher quality product suite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if you're doing like PICP, permeable interlocking concrete pavers right now, I would immediately switch the joint material to that flex joint from Romex.
The flex joint, the fine or flex joint, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and that even with like your standard, like a Teco block standard
like a blue 60.
Say it again.
Like a Teco block blue 60.
Yes.
Yeah.
then you could put the flex joint. You could use that. As long
as it's one with at least a 1/4 inch lug on it, right? So your joints are wide enough.
Yep.
Because it's a little bit pasty to get down in, but it actually has rubber in it. So if you could lift the joint up and like turn it this way, you could bend it like 10 degrees in either direction. So it accommodates movement like crazy. And then you see how strongly it stood against that pressure washer too. It's a really neat material.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we got one in the queue. So all right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you, I guess I should tell you where to buy.
That's what I was thinking, or we should swap details or
Oh,
something.
shoot, I just
Great presentation.
the whole hour pitch for somebody else to get the sale. So you can get it from Daltile directly, but if you have a preferred hardscape dealer nearby, then let me know and I'll go talk to them. Like Martin Eddy's, for example. I know
What about Site One? They're everywhere.
Yeah, Site One. Yeah, we're authorized vendor to Site One.
Okay.
And they've got all the Romex part numbers that point to us in their computer. So yes.
Okay. Yeah, we're with Site One. So
yeah, but if there's particularly somebody with Site One who's like an area hardscape manager, area business manager that you're tight with, I love an introduction. I might know them already, I might not. But trying to get them, they're a big monster just like Daltile is. So you have to win locally everywhere with those cats. You can't just I know everybody at headquarters. Right? I know Doug Black personally. He's the president and CEO, but there's only so much he cares about.
Technical details, not so much, maybe.
Yeah.
He doesn't sell that much porcelain. If I had like a deal for a natural stone, he'd probably be more interested. For now. We'll get him though.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for the good question.
I have a couple questions.
All right.
Being in Arizona, where we are right now, is there with the finish, like the rock dust aggregate, is there a matte finish so it's not so glossy? Because glossy isn't really natural for the Arizona.
Yeah, so no, it'll always there is one that starts out matte, but it's reasonably more expensive. So when we did one here in Dallas, well, I'm not in Dallas right now, but in Dallas, it was about 4 months before the gloss was just gone and gone for good. So Arizona, maybe 3 months, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but it won't last. Just tell whoever, like, that'll fade. It makes more sense to save the dough and just go with the one that will fade in 3 months. Nobody's going to notice it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the ADA, you said ADA because we're doing a permeable path right now on a project in Avondale. And so that was a big deal to have the ADA information. Do you guys have that available online as like a spec sheet?
I'm probably going to have to ask somebody from Romex for that. I'm happy to look around on their site. We don't have it on our site. We do have some of their documents on our site, but I can find that. And certainly it depends on, the diameter of the stone that you're using as well.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can. One moment.
So Phil's traveling, so he's in a hotel room looking.
Yeah, you can't tell by the lighting. So okay, that's Regina, right?
Right.
And what's your last name?
Schmidt, SCHMIDT.
And you're in Arizona?
Mm-hmm.
Whereabouts?
We're in Tempe.
Okay.
What I'll also do, I'll actually stop the recording now. I'll send this out to everybody as well. So